If you're like most entrepreneurs, you may not have any idea what to do when it comes to hiring an employee, when it comes to building your team, when it comes to adding to your staff. Well, you're in the right place. If you're somebody who is overworked, you're working late, you're waking up early, you're constantly tethered to your phone for more than 10 hours a day working on your business, then this episode is for you. So keep listening. Now, I'm Joe Sova. I'm the host of the Joe Sova Business Show, and we're going to get right to the point. There's no intro music. There's no fancy graphics or any of that stuff. We're getting right to it because the fact is that I know you're busy. I'm in your shoes as well. I'm an entrepreneur myself, and I know that we do lots of things. We take on lots of tasks, and when something needs to be done, that's who gets it done. Now, the best way, as you already know, if you listen to me any amount of time or if you've been working in your business for a while, you likely already know that building out your team is the best way to grow and scale your business and reach those dreams and desires that you always have. That's the reason you started your business, is to do something bigger than just yourself. Am I right? So growing your team is a huge step, but that first step is daunting. It can be challenging, right? You might be looking at it thinking, I don't even know where to start when it comes to hiring somebody. Or, maybe you tried a VA or a virtual assistant or, a 1099 contractor or something like that, and it may or may not have worked out. But when you're adding an employee to your team, that's when you'll notice things really accelerate. That's when you'll notice that you are committed to your business and they are committed to you when it's done right. Now, today in this episode, we're going to go over a simple checklist that you need when hiring your first employee. Okay, so we're going to get right to it here. There are 5 things. Well, there's actually more than that. And if you're interested in the more, I'd be here for an hour if I went over every single one of them in detail. So I'm not going to do that. But what I can do is direct you to my website. Go to joesovatraining.com, and there's actually a free resource on there for a new employee checklist. And it's going to give you all the details that you need, and you can just check, go one by one off the list to make sure that you're covering all of your bases when hiring that new employee. So whether this is your first employee, your employee number 1, as we like to say, or this is your 10th, or 100th, whatever it is, maybe you're missing a step in here, you can get this free resource. Go to joesovatraining.com, and it is there waiting for you, absolutely free. But in this episode, we'll go over the most important ones, the first ones to get you started, and that way you'll have an idea of what to expect. So step number 1 of the checklist is to determine what type of role that this person will play within your business. All right, and what I mean by that is, are you going to hire them as a 1099 contractor? Or are you going to hire them as a W-2 employee? Because there's a huge difference. And I've done other episodes on this and other content that you can find. It's not simply your decision as to, am I going to make them a W-2 employee, an internal employee of my business, or am I going to use them as a 1099 contractor? You may not realize it, or you may or may not realize this actually, is it's not your decision. It's actually based on their duties and the control of those duties and several other factors. That's a whole nother episode. But you do need to decide what type of role that is. And if you're interested in that, I have other resources on that. So again, go to the website, joesovatraining.com, and you can check that out as well. So checklist, step number 1, determine the type of role. Is it an in-house W-2 employee or an external 1099 contractor that you're going to bring onto your team? Number 2, once you decide that, is what type of pay are you going to do? So how are you going to determine what this person is paid? You can pay a flat salary in some instances, not all instances. It depends on the job and the work being done. But you may want to pay a flat salary. You may want to pay by the hour. So some people are paid for every hour. Others are paid more on a project basis or a piece rate. You complete so many widgets and you get paid per widget or something like that, or per project. If you're building a website or something, I'm going to pay you a flat fee. So determine if this person is an ongoing worker in your business. Are you going to pay them a salary, or are they going to be an hourly based employee? Now, this might surprise some of you out there as well. That's not your decision either necessarily. All right, there are certain requirements that have to be met in order to be fully salaried, which means they can work 1 hour or 80 hours in a week and they get paid the same amount. All right, and what comes into play is overtime laws in the U.S. Okay, there are overtime laws that say you can't just work somebody 80 hours a week if they're, a frontline worker, for example, just flipping burgers or something like that. And that's not going to apply to everybody depending on your business. But my point is, make sure that you're allowed to pay them by the hour or salary, I should say, because it's not just as simple as, well, this person's a frontline worker, they're an office admin staff, I'm going to pay them a flat $100 a week, and they just have to work. That's not the case. And again, I have more material on that as well. Step number 3 is to decide how often you're going to pay people. Okay. So this sets an expectation for the worker. This is something most people, if you're like most entrepreneurs, you don't even think about, right? You're okay, bring on an employee. I'll pay him at some point, right? But have a set schedule. This helps the consistency with the employee understand that, okay, this person means business. They're organized. This is somewhere I want to work, right, before they come on board. And it also helps you from a budgeting standpoint because there's pros and cons to how often you pay. You could pay once a week. You could pay every 2 weeks. You could pay twice a month. You could pay once a month, right? So you could pay at the end of a project. It all depends on the type of work the person's doing, but you want to have a set schedule as to how often you pay them so that it is consistent, all right? So that's step number 3. So just to recap a little bit, step number 1, are they a W-2 employee or 1099? Step number 2, are you going to pay them hourly or salary? Step number 3, how often are you going to pay them? Okay. Now, step number 4, again, seems pretty basic, but a lot of people overlook this until it's payday. But are you going to pay this person electronically? Or are you going to pay them by a check? Or are you going to use something random like Venmo or something like that, right? You have to have a method to pay them. And there's various ways to do that through banks and different things like that. My business, outside of coaching and training, I have a payroll processing company. So we do this for other businesses where we actually send those payments out and then take care of the taxes and things like that on the back end. But you want to make sure that you're establishing that up front. Again, set that expectation for the employee so they know what to expect. So those are 4. Now, this last one I'm going to cover today, again, there's multiple more. You can find that in the free resource. So go to joesovatraining.com. But this last one is important as well, and it's the paperwork needed. All right. So whether you bring somebody on as a 1099 contractor or as a W-2 employee, there's specific paperwork that you as an employer, as a business, want to have in line to make sure you're compliant with the applicable laws. Now, every state has a little bit different things, but in general, they're the same. It's things like your W-4 form, an I-9 form, and there's several other things that you'll want to monitor. Again, go get that free resource. It covers everything. I'm not going to go through every detail here, but those are the big ones. Make sure that you have a federal W-4, the I-9 form, and your state may have a specific W-4 form. So look that up if they're actually an in-house employee. So that gets you started with the checklist. Again, there's several more, so check that out. But the point here is that the more organized and the more efficient you can be up front for your staff, that shows that you're committed to them as an employee. All right. If you walk in somewhere, let's just use an example. Let's say you walk in to buy a new pair of jeans somewhere. All right. I'm not big on jean shopping. I probably should go get some. Mine are pretty old, but let's just say, I don't know why I picked this, but this is where I'm going. You're going to go buy a new pair of jeans and you walk into the store and there's stuff everywhere, right? Nothing's organized. You can't find anything. And the person at the counter says, oh yeah, we got jeans somewhere. Let me go find them, right? And they're digging through everything and they bring them out and you're like, well, shouldn't the jeans have pockets in them or something like that, right? So there's all these weird things happening. You probably don't want to buy your clothes at that store. Right? It makes you uneasy, clearly, doesn't it? Right? It makes you think these guys don't really have their stuff together. I'm a little nervous about buying anything from these guys. Well, it's the same when an employee walks into your business, or if you're virtual online and you don't have this stuff up front ready to go and decided. They're going to start asking questions to themselves. They're going to start second guessing, like, do I really want to work for this place? Because they don't really know what's going on. Even if it's your first employee, you can still set that expectation that, hey, this is a professional environment. We have our stuff together. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to have every answer ironed out and there's not going to be any flaws, right? You get some grace there. But when those things happen, it doesn't mean it's happened on every single possible thing where, yeah, I don't even know what paperwork I need. Sorry, go look it up yourself, Mr. Employee. Like it doesn't really set a good tone, a good impression of the type of business you run if that's the case. So even if it's your first employee, Use this checklist, go down the list, make these decisions, make sure you're covering all these things, and you will find that your employees appreciate that, and it actually sets a tone for success going forward, and that you guys are prepared together as part of the team. Again, check out joesovatraining.com. There's a lot of resources that I covered in this episode that will help you out. And as always, I'm there to help you grow your business. Entrepreneurs are the lifeblood of the country, right? Of our world. The more successful entrepreneurs are, the better our world is. That's what we stand for, and that's why we do what we do. So if you like this episode and this was helpful, others will find it helpful too. So share it out there, send it to a friend who needs it. And as always, let's support each other, and thank you for listening. We'll see you on the next episode.